Yeah,
Even
I was
before?
trading Genesis games for other Genesis games, doing 2-for-1 deals because I finished those games. Who cares?
When I was a kid, sure, because I was renting a game every week at the Blockbuster.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about like when I was in college and before I came out here and started doing this full time. It's like, I probably bought like 8 games a year, or 10 or something like that. Like I knew the games I really wanted to play, and I targeted those and played them to completion.
So I started getting far wider access to games when I was, 17.
Okay. Man, that must have been fucking crazy.
And it was like the SNES was, it's like 92.
Okay.
And 93 and stuff, and going to trade shows and starting to just see a lot of like preview ROMs and just like starting to see a lot of this stuff. So yeah, you get in it.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like you want to talk about like, a crazy video game industry that was not on the level and was like shady. Talking about the early 90s of video games.
That was it.
Where like every third party publisher is like a American division of a Japanese company that is seemingly just run by like the same clone of a businessman, just like cigar chomping, just like, hey kid, you want to play it? We got Top Gear. We got Kemco over here. We got these spy versus spy games coming out. Like it just felt like every single company was like not to single out Kemco. I don't know. I don't remember specifically who was working at Kemco in the 90s. I could be totally wrong, but it definitely felt like you saw a lot of that where like the American divisions of these companies were just a sales arm. So it was just like, here's some guy who knows dick fuck about video games, standing in front of a kiosk with 6 screens. And you're just like, and he just wants to sell fucking games. He doesn't give a shit about anything else.
Whatever it takes to move the product.
Basically. And yeah, I don't really know, I wasn't deep enough to know how the press was rolling and what the magazines were doing or not doing. But those guys sure seem like they would do anything to try to get ahead.
Oh, man.
Man.
I caught the tail end of that, I think, when I got in.
Sure. Yeah. There was definitely
my first E3 in 97.
Yep. Yeah, that was right about
definitely remember more of those types around E3.
Yeah, 96, 97, like the first few E3s still had a lot of that. And then like you just had companies starting to go public.
Yeah.
And as soon as they became large corporations, you can't fuck around like that anymore.
Sure.
And so like early days of PlayStation, like the tone of the industry very much changed. It became more businesslike, which, just made it kind of insidious in a slightly different way.
Sure. Less transparent.
But yeah.
Indeed. Well, as if we haven't talked enough shop already.
Sure.
Here's an email from Norris in Vancouver. It's kind of long.
Okay.
I want to tell you guys the story of my first freelance games journalist gig.
Okay.
My first tip, I will say, stop using the phrase games journalist.
Yeah, it's games writing or something. I don't know.
It's semantics at a certain point.
Call it what you want to. Who cares?
I agree, but it's the broader perception of that term has taken on a certain weird stigma.
I don't know. I mean, like it's at some point you got to own up to it.
Yeah, I was offered.
It is what it is.
I was offered by a well-known game journalism outlet. Not doing what I said to do.
Well, yeah, definitely not.
To write 5 previews over 2 days at this year's PAX Prime.
Okay.
I was offered the job about 3 days before the show was to begin, and at that time, I wasn't planning on going.
Oh.
I had no passes, no place to stay, no idea how to get to Seattle. Obviously, I accepted.
Yeah, sure.
I bought the passes I needed and borrowed a car from a friend to drive from Vancouver, but only under the condition that I take it the Saturday of PAX, so I had to wake up at 4 a.m. in order to get to Seattle in time for my first 10 a.m. appointment.
Glamorous.
I survived the weekend on Red Bull and anxiety.
Yeah. There you go.
I had no place to sleep, so I ended up sleeping in my car.
Hell yeah.
Which is difficult to do even after being awake for 24 hours and drinking for the last 6. It's a moment that makes you reflect on your life choices.
Well, yeah, I mean, you shouldn't fucking done the drinking. I mean,
Yes.
don't fucking go out. Like, that's the thing. Like, you would tell people, like, even the early E3s, like, you can go out fucking all night if you want. I don't care what you do. You want to go out and fucking drink your ass off, but fucking you're at the booth first thing in the morning. God damn it.
Yeah. Yes. That's E3.
E3 is not a great place to be hungover either.
No.
It is the loudest,
Well,
busiest.
And PAX is
I've never really been
kind of worse
hungover
in
at
a way.
E3 because we could never afford to be, but I definitely have been at PAX.
I
And that is not
have
pleasant.
been drunk from the night before at E3.
Wow.
You want to talk about the 96, 97 E3s.
There was that year I went to that midnight showing of that fucking stupid Star Wars movie.
Oh, that's right.
And then showed up the next
Yeah.
day.
You dumbass.
I think I fell asleep during it.
But what about Camp Freddy at that Sony party?
That was fucking awesome.
That was fucking awesome.
Man. To this day, I wish I could remember all the people that went on stage.
Yeah.
Like, could you even come close to recollecting?
Nope.
There were so many.
I remember when we were in Vegas and saw Camp Freddy at some other Sony party
Yes.
because someone at Sony said, "This is awesome."
Yep.
And they were right.
Yep.
And then Tone Loc played.
Yep.
And
Tone
then
Loc.
I tried to speak to Tone Loc, and he turned away from me. He did not want to hear that I was a fan.
That sucks. That
I
sucks.
was like, fair enough, Tone Loc. Fair enough.
I got a beer at the bar that night at the Vegas one, right next to Lemmy from Motorhead.
That's right. Yeah, I remember
yeah.
that. Yeah.
It was cool.
He's a tiny man.
Yes. So I remember. Let's see. That was kind of like Dave Navarro's thing, right? Or was. So he was always.
Yeah,
there.
he was always there.
I remember
yeah.
Juliette Lewis showed up.
Right.
There was Tone Loc.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Scott Weiland.
Yep.
Like 20 other people.
Yeah.
Just
That
like
guy from the Cult.
yeah. It's just like, oh shit, it's the guitarist from that band. Oh god, it's that person. Like, it was ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. That
Fucking
whole
ridiculous.
thing's super cool. And it was just like some LA thing that they did, like a monthly set or
It was
a
just
weekly
this
set or
bizarre
whatever.
super
that
group
then,
thing of let's
know.
let's bring out some guitarist to play a solo during the song.
Right. So then, like, whoever was, booking events for Sony at the time knew about this thing and said, we should fucking book this for our thing because it's crazy.
Yeah,
And they were right. It was.
it's totally insane.
Yeah.
All right, there's one more paragraph. I spent the entire weekend either holding interviews or writing in the Sheraton lobby while stealing their internet.
Yuck.
I got to see maybe an hour of the actual PAX floor, of which I spent probably half the time talking with the perpetually smiling Brad Muir. I wrote about 4,500 words in a day and a half, somehow getting everything in on time. I can't even imagine what you guys have to deal with at E3. Was this a normal experience? Yes and no. Definitely never slept in a car at a trade show.
No, yeah, that's, yeah.
I think that second paragraph is very
The workload
Comment,
stuff?
yeah, the workload
Oh, my
stuff.
God, yeah. You'd have, 2 interviews lined up. You've got, 4 previews or
Oh, yeah.
something.
The
got a
writing-
podcast
yeah.
to record.
The writing thousands of words in 2 days or whatever. Absolutely.
The
Like,
fucked
did
up
it
thing
many
about
years in a row.
E3 scheduling and how it used to be when we were trying to, we're going to write about every single game that's at the show. When that was the goal, you never had time to actually write. Because you were going from appointment to appointment to appointment.
Right.
So, the thing that would happen to me is I might find time to write one thing during the day.
Yep.
But then it would be okay, day's over. Now we're going to sit in the booth and write for the next 8 hours.
Pull out your notebook,
Right.
full of stuff you wrote down all day.
and start actually drilling it out,
Yeah.
or go back to the hotel and write there.
Right.
And it would be some mixture of those two things.
Yeah, so those were easy 18-hour days.
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
full day on the show floor and then all night until 2 in the morning.
Right.
Writing stuff up.
And then frequently you get to a point where you would just get I remember 1 year I shared a room with Greg. And there was definitely a moment where it's just like we have this bottle of vodka. This is going back and forth. And it's just fucking writing and just banging this fucking shit out.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
just getting it done. I mean, at that point, that many years in, that was just the expectation that you weren't bitching about it.
Yeah.
Because that was the job.
Yep.
And in retrospect, you look back now and go on one hand, yeah, we fucking did it.
It was like a crazy endurance test to survive.
But on the other hand, you look at it and go that's just not, I mean,
I was
kinda
always
crazy.
In a modern context, it wasn't the smartest way to cover stuff. It was just
it was
just a brute force approach that, it made sense at the time. It's what everybody did.
Yeah, and I would argue that we did it we fucking threw ourselves against the wall harder than anybody else did.
Absolutely. With the stage show.
And we weren't always first with everything.
Yeah.
But by the end of that show, we had
Covered E3 like a blanket.
everything,
Yeah.
I was always jealous of hearing stories from the guys that had been at Game Informer forever prior to the website.
Fuck,
towards
man.
print.
Yeah.
So it's they would just go see the games all day and everything. You'd go to parties at night or whatever, and then wait till they're back in Minnesota. I'm all right, I guess we'll get these ready for the magazine. Whereas now all I've known is the website stuff,
Right.
where it's
Yeah.
we need to get these up right now.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
That was the same for me when I first started working E3. It was in an online capacity, but the magazines were still around.
The frustrating, there was
Seeing that happen, I was just oh, I'm so jealous.
I mean, we got to see it right next to us because we were all Ziff, and
Right.
so we were owned by the same company that owned EGM and shared a booth. So it'd be the EGM guys standing around doing nothing, while we are fucking going nuts. And I already kind of had a chip on my shoulder about print because online had become such an upstart thing that a lot of publishers wouldn't take it seriously at the beginning. I think I've said before, Square didn't want to send us games; they thought we were going to pirate it. because it's the internet. I don't know how the internet works because it's Japan. And so, you already had that kind of like upstart mentality to it that I think a lot of the YouTube people sort of have about us nowadays. And yeah, seeing people like that standing around doing nothing.
This sounds amazing. Just go see games at your leisure. When you get back home.
I wouldn't know what to do. Like, honestly, like having that kind of E3, like we have a much different E3 now than we do because, we're priming for the nighttime show.
Yeah. Which, in a weird way, it's almost back to kind of like how it used to be. Like, we're taking appointments,
like the hours. Yeah, exactly.
Show.
Like the hours are kind of the same in a dumb way.
Like the last night of E3,
we did it to ourselves.
We were all breaking down the equipment and packing up at like 1 a.m.
Yep.
After E3 was over and half the people had flown out of LA.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, fuck, we're doing it again.
Yeah. Like there's no time for parties, no time for anything. So people are like, hey man, you want to grab a drink? It's like, no. Like, I mean, yes, absolutely. I would love to see you and catch up, but I'm going from the show floor to starting this show. This is what we do. That's why we're here. And I'm not complaining about it. We did that to ourselves, and I think it's a cool way to cover E3. I like what we do.
Yeah.
Would you do it on your own though? Kind of like what this guy did.
On my own, I wouldn't go to E3 anymore. At this point, because like the games that are put out on the show floor are like less stuff is accessible than ever before. Like it seems like every year more and more stuff is by appointment only. So it used to be the opposite. It used to be everything was at a kiosk and everything was there for you to play. There was like 3 games or something you would have to go see by appointment. And now, there's stuff out there, but instead it's like, here's 40 of the same game. And it's like, that's not useful.
Yeah, you're right about that. But at the same time, if it's like this guy and you're trying to break in,
it's still
worth
take the work
seeing.
You can get, I guess, right? I mean, like at some point.
I mean, 100% if you have the assignment and it pays, like don't do it for free. But like,
they didn't get him tickets or anything?
If you have an assignment, it doesn't sound like it. I mean, if you have an assignment, it's worth it. But also, it's worth just seeing how it all runs and how it's put together.
Well, also, I think going for free has its own merits, too, because, I mean, just the novelty, like when I was trying to break in and stuff, I wasn't getting paid. I was paying hundreds of dollars to go out there. And just to be around this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just to be, oh, my God, look at these giant booths and all these games, and that game's not out for another 6 months. Like, I can play it now if I wait in line. Like,
you're right about that.
I was talking about don't do the work for free.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I was just,
I'm not
but
saying.
like for me, it was like, there was definitely like, but I feel like the shows were better. Like more of the games were widely accessible. So like, but like the first, when I went to CES, like I wasn't really doing work. Like we were going and we ostensibly had some kind of magazine thing, but it was like a scam, to get in.
Yes. I may have had my name put on a GeoCities site. Somebody I knew ran in 1998 to get on the press list.
Yeah. You'd go to E3 early on, and there were just tons of games, and you just go like, I want to play every single one of these games, and then it became harder to do that if you were just a straight up attendee. Like you started needing more and more appointments to get any kind of access to the games you really wanted to see.
I think it was that way because I started in 06 and it was kind of that way. That was the first year they were showing off the Wii. And so I remember like I had to get appointments for like Mario Galaxy and Metroid Prime because like the line was like 8 hours long wrapped around the damn
And that's
building.
the thing where you just look at and go like, who has the time to wait in line for 8 hours at E3? Like, how is that happening?
Yeah. They didn't have lines like that back in the day.
No.
The first few E3s, like you just kind of walked up to stuff and played it.
CES, man. Street Fighter 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had the SNES version of Street Fighter 2 hooked up with 2 of those Capcom joysticks. And there was like a Street Fighter arcade machine somewhere else, but this one, there was a line of like 50 people.
People just wanted to see the Super NES.
People wanted to play it, and it was free. And they would lose, and they would go to the back of the line. I spent most of a CES doing that.
Wow.
Because it's fucking Street Fighter.
Sure.
But yeah.
Oh, those were the days.
Sure, I guess.
Now we're crusty and old.
But yeah, I mean, like whatever. Like I wouldn't be where I am right now had I not gone to those shows and
100%.
Like forged some connections and met the people that I had met. And,
I was going to say it's not just getting your hands on games. It's it's the chance encounters that might happen while you're there. You never know who you're going to meet.
Right.
What kind of contacts are going to happen? Connections. I mean, I've never slept in a car, but I practically did my first E3. Like. I drove. I was 17, and I got in the car and drove on a whim to Atlanta because somebody I'd never met before told me on IRC that they had a pass they would give me. That could have gone real bad.
Yeah, that sounds real safe.
But it went all right instead.
Okay.
And then I met a bunch of people that it's kind of how I got started.
Sure. Yeah.
Or a bunch of people I'd already been talking to online.
I wonder if that's even possible these days with the way E3 works.
Yeah.
If like that's the show. I mean, PAX is maybe a better opportunity to meet people too.
Yeah.
And.
I mean, like,
and the internet is so much more ingrained in everything
it's
that,
so
like,
different now.
the online connections you can forge via social media, I think
so different,
are probably a little more valuable.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, yeah, you've got a lot more potential for finding inroads without actually physically going to things like that.
Yeah.
But back then, the average person didn't know what the internet was.
Yeah.
I was one of like very, very small handful of kids in my high school that even had internet access, Like nobody knew about it or cared back then.
Right.
Times have changed.